I got this great comment about the 40% spousal abuse rate likely being an underreported number. And I would like to take a minute to really dig into where this 40% spousal abuse rate number comes from. This is one of the two places the 40% number comes from, and it is a transcript of the hearing before the Select Committee on Children, Youth, and Families in the House of Representatives. And the title of this is called On the Front Lines: Police, Stress, and Family Well-Being, way up at the top. 10% of the spouses reported being physically abused by their mates at least once. This is spouses of law enforcement officers. And it's basically the same percentage for reporting that the children were physically abused. This is physical abuse. So it's, of course, not the 40% number, but it's specific to physical abuse, which we all know that abuse is much more than physical. The officers were asked a less direct question, that is, if they had ever gotten out of control and behaved violently against their spouse and children in the last 6 months. So they didn't specify whether it had to be physical or what kind of violence it was, opening the door to emotional, verbal, and physical violence. Approximately 40% said that in the last 6 months prior to the survey, they had behaved violently towards their spouse or children. 40% of law enforcement admitted to abusing their partner and or their children. Here's the second of the two studies this number comes from. It's called Interspousal Aggression in Law Enforcement Families, a Preliminary Investigation. This is a table from that study, Table 4. Any violence by either partner is reported 41% in law enforcement, 16% in civilian populations, and 32% in military. In case you prefer a narrative, we have a nice summary here. By self-report, approximately 40% of the officers surveyed report at least one episode of physical aggression during a marital conflict in the previous year, with 8% of the male officers reporting severe violence. I often hear people talk about this 40% spousal abuse rate number in law enforcement, and they say, imagine what the real number is when abuse goes so severely underreported in general by survivors, and law enforcement has a culture of protecting each other. And so if your partner is a law enforcement officer and they are abusing you, you are probably much less likely to report that. And we also know historically, abusive partners are not willing to acknowledge that they are the problem. If 40% of them are willing to self-report their own abusive behavior, how many cops do we think are abusive?